Hey everyone. This is my first Facebook Live since I've been back from Puerto Rico. And just wanted to let you guys know what I have been doing. Hi Debbie, how are you? So just letting you know kind of a little bit of what happened while I was in Puerto Rico and just giving you kind of a summary of my thoughts of what I think is going on there. So I'm going to cover a lot of different topics here. I actually tried to do this yesterday and I totally messed it up. So you can go to my Instagram and I may say other things over there, but I'm going to try to summarize as much as I can here. Hey, Debbie. So, you know, I have a bunch of notes. I'm trying my best to cover what I can. You know, something that I wanted to kind of talk about is preparedness for a disaster and maybe what we could do next time around for the next disaster that's coming, because they're coming, and it doesn't matter where you are. But it opened my eyes to the need for certain things that we should all be thinking about, and it's really probably not that hard to prepare. And I think I'm guilty of having been a person. As a matter of fact, when I came back home and talked to Jason about it, my husband, about what to do for a disaster, he's like, well, what disaster is going to happen here? And I think that's the danger. That's the danger of not thinking out that far. Hola, Juan. So just a couple thoughts about that. It's probably pretty simple, and maybe everybody here already has this stuff. I don't have all of it. So I'm just going to let you know some thoughts about something that probably every family should think about. So, you know, down there, a lot of people didn't have chainsaws. So a lot of people wonder, oh, why is it taking so long to clean up? Or why is there so much debris everywhere still? It's because chainsaws aren't kind of like common there. You need a machete is more likely what you have in the house, and that's pretty good. But I would say I don't know that I have either. I mean, I think I might have a chainsaw, but I'm gonna get one because you never know what can fall down, what you need to clear out. Another thing is a generator. It's definitely something that wasn't on my list in the past to have, and now I would say you for sure want to have a generator. And especially if you have children who have needs, or elderly who needs medical needs or anything like that. I've met multiple people who, one of the biggest problems with this crisis is, you know, they prepare for 3 days to a week, maybe at the most. And what I found out is if you're somebody who has any sort of medical needs, you need a generator, because if you have the need for air, for instance, you have medicine that needs to be refrigerated, just some basic food or something like that, that is really, really important. So, I mean, it's something that we all should probably be thinking about. And I would say also have more than one can that you can fill up for diesel or gasoline. I think a lot of people just have like the small one, like I have for my machines around here, but you should probably have like 5 or 7 so that you can have enough for a week. Because what happens is immediately after a disaster, even if you have enough for that day or 2 days, the lines are insane. You also may need a ton of cash on hand. I would recommend having, you know, whatever you can afford, but at a minimum $500 on hand, because it also goes down to a cash system. That's part of what the problem was there. So even if you can get somewhere and you need something, you need some cash on hand. So obviously non-perishable items to eat. You know, my honest to God answer to non-perishable foods and water is 2 weeks. I think you want to make sure you have at least 2 weeks, because you never know what you need. And so these are just simple, basic things that we all can do that really probably don't consume a lot of time. You can go through it, you know, like I have a Costco membership. From now on, I'm going to try my best to have at least that. I'll eat through it and then I'll go get more, right? I use bottled water in this house, so I probably will just make sure that I have at least a couple bottles, the big gallon or however many gallons that is of water on hand in the house, and just keep a couple and then rotate them out. It's just a really simple thing to do. If you have a better idea even than all the battery powered things that we all need in if you're in the heat, you need fans, you need mosquito repellent, all those kind of things on hand. And here we'd need firewood and other things like that, fans, same thing. But I would say a better idea is to have as many solar powered things that you can instead of battery powered items. Batteries are a hot commodity in Puerto Rico right now, especially double D batteries, the round ones. Those are really, really difficult to come by. They're sold out everywhere. And most things have come back where you can find most things. But so we are two months in, and I brought tons of batteries down, and people needed them. So those are probably the main things that I would say. Just an awareness thing I had never thought of before. Hola, Fabiana, and Tom. Nice to see you guys. So just some other things that I kind of have thought about since I've been there. I guess there were a lot of questions, so I'm going to try my best to answer as many questions as I can. Just from an accomplishment standpoint, like, did I get everything done that I set out to do? No, I did not get get everything done that I set out to do. I wish I had. I had quite a list of things to do, places to see. It's really hard to communicate. We're down there right now. I have a Verizon phone. Verizon is by far the worst currently down there. There were days that it told me that I could only make emergency phone calls. There would be days where I would suddenly get by a tower somewhere, and then I would get a flood of messages and voicemails and things that I hadn't been getting. If you have AT&T, you're better off. But if you have the local phone company, which is Claro, which bought Verizon, you're in the best shape. You probably can do pretty well. But even GPS was a struggle for me. So right now, if you're still not hearing back from folks from the island, I would say be patient. Texting actually is probably the best way to get a hold of people right now, because if they can't answer the phone right now, you can't leave a voicemail or something like that. At some point, they'll get your text. And like when they're driving around and they're near a tower, suddenly they'll see it and they'll get back to you. So those are probably the best ways to get a hold of people, unless they're on social media or something like that. That's why we're seeing a lot of people using social media, because when they get a chance, they can get on it. But I guess what I'm saying about that is, when I set out to do all these different things, it was so hard for me to get a hold of all the people that I wanted to get a hold of, even though I had made arrangements before I got to Puerto Rico to try to meet up with as many organizations as I could. Sometimes when I was down there, who knows what different situations were going on. Some people also who are doing a lot of the volunteer work have jobs, were in remote areas. It was hard to get a hold of people. So as much as I tried, and the driving and the traffic is insane right now because all the lights are out. And the consequence of that is just an island that's already pretty congested with people, and traffic is already really a challenge. Right now, it's super challenging because of the lights being out. It's somewhat more dangerous. I will say I grew up driving down there, so it wasn't as awful as it might be for some people who hadn't been there. And people are just negotiating their way through the lights, but it just takes a little bit longer. The other thing that's happening there were tons of volunteer police force and firemen from stateside who were there to help. And what they were mainly doing was directing traffic so that the local police, could deal with more of crime and things like that. But it's even a challenge for them to communicate with each other. I had a very in-depth conversation with a couple of volunteer police. So it's hard. Now, crime isn't any worse than it normally is. This is my impression. I didn't think that it seemed any worse. And from the people that I spoke to, it didn't seem worse. It's just that from a crime perspective, it's maybe what they want is different, right? Maybe money for drugs isn't like the thing that you're gonna be assaulted over, but you might get your generator stolen. So that is, the shift might have happened in that way, but I didn't see higher incidence of anything like that. So it's not unsafe, is what I'm gonna say, is like I felt like safe everywhere I went. I was told not to go around at night. Hey, Dave. But I did go out at night because I was all over the island and it was pretty much unavoidable because of how much I was trying to get done and where I was trying to go. I never had any occurrence of anything dangerous. So, yeah, but even though I didn't accomplish everything I set out to do, I really had a good sense of what is going on, how people are doing. And I would say I feel at peace. I feel like I did see a lot of family and friends, and really the Puerto Rican attitude showed through. People are coming together. It's a resilient place. People were, even in the face of sadness and danger. Hola, mami. Hey, mommy. And Christy, hi. So even in the face of everything that was kind of sad going on, I would say the attitude was awesome. I was touched. I'm forever changed by this experience. I don't know how I'm going to keep helping with this recovery, but I feel more Puerto Rican than ever. I'm definitely going to keep going back, and I'm going to keep helping. And I'll tell you more about some ideas I have about that. But I will say, like, some of the things that I saw were, there is definitely, I would say, PTSD or something going on. People do, when they talk about it, a lot of people said the same thing to me, where they said, I didn't take a lot of video, I didn't take a lot of pictures. I just want to forget about this. I never want to remember Puerto Rico like this, because the landscape, I mean, not to mention that everything is just destroyed. And when I say it's destroyed, it's a level that I can't comprehend. If you saw Kalamazoo like this, any place that we all live like this, you would be shocked. It looked like a tornado went through there. It looked like somebody set fire to the trees. They're bare. They're like just trunks with a little bit of green coming out of the top. The good news is it is getting green again. But I will say that the trunk, it's like trunks of trees, and they look burned. And I don't know why it's like that, but I don't know if the wind was just so violent, but even the branches are gone from most of the trees, and then a little bit of green. And then on top of that, it is, it's just hard to describe. I've never really seen anything like it. All of the posts, I'll start showing pictures and stuff. You'll see in some of the videos I'm posting, but I mean, and I'm not talking about like one or two posts. It's like everywhere, everything is down. So, you know, light posts are warped and twisted, and just on the side of the streets being waiting for somebody to pick that up. Trees, debris, entire people's homes of their belongings are out there. Some of the most impressive things I've seen are the street, you know, like on a highway, the big street sign that tells you where you're going, just like we have here. Those at times were just completely ripped out of the ground and twisted, and it looked like a tornado. They were just off on the side. And so you imagine how long is it going to take to clean that up and then get that fixed, put back up there. I mean, it's insurmountable in my mind, like some of the disaster part of it. So that is troubling, but I do see people working on it, right? Some of the like positive things, there were, I feel like people were talking to each other a lot more. People care about their neighbors. Kids are out in the street playing the way that I played when I was a kid. Again, you talk to your neighbors because you don't have phone and you don't have internet and you don't have all these things, and you're also just concerned. I think in those early days, in that first month, when literally there was such little information and people didn't know things, people really cared about each other, took care of each other, and came together. I saw people, there were people that I met who said, I didn't know anybody in my neighborhood, and now we're all going to go on a trip together. Or we had barbecues every night for weeks, so that we could all make sure everybody was okay. And we went and checked on someone to make sure that they were okay. There's a lot of elderly people that people were checking in on. Hey, I see new people join. Hola, Dalian and Diego and Dad. So just letting you know, like some of the things I saw, I really am impressed with the Puerto Rican spirit. I think that people are appreciative of the help they're getting, but they're also taking it on themselves to improve things. So I didn't see all my family. I wanted to see a lot of my family, but I tried to see as much as I could, but I really was on a mission to try to find out as much information as I could. And I haven't finished editing all the videos with Cam, but I put one out today, so hopefully you'll see that. And the goal of that trip really was to identify organizations or people or groups who have kind of come together to do things. But what I guess if I were to transition into something else is like, what would I hope for the future? I mean, a Puerto Rico in the future that I think is important, and maybe it's not just Puerto Rico, it's anywhere. It's opened my eyes. I always was on board with, you know, green initiatives and self-sustainability and those kind of things, but now I'm really on board with that. I can see, I'll give you an example. I went to, if you saw my Rogue United video, which was about a group of doctors. Actually, they were joined up with some doctors called Doctoras Boricuas, and they were going across the mountains trying to find people who needed help in the most remote areas. It was an amazing experience. That's where I got to actually personally deliver supplies to places, and please do watch that video. It was pretty crazy. But in that town, it's called Adjuntas. It's like south middle of the island, so it's in the mountains. When I went down from the mountains, I went to the city center because there was an organization there called Casa Pueblo that I wanted to see, and they're an old foundation that's been there for a while, and their kind of whole initiative has been around, from day one, has been around green sustainability. In particular, they care a lot about about light powering things. So they actually, their little campus that's right there in the downtown, it's across from a school next to a church. Their whole initiative has been around sustainability for a long time. So their whole campus is powered by solar lights. And it was a crazy beacon of hope in the middle of all of that. In that town, which is a pretty impoverished area, they were the only place that had light at night throughout the hurricane, post-hurricane, and the symbolism of being like the one place that could sustain power and was actively running and delivering supplies to people because they were prepared to have that. It's pretty powerful. So they created a campaign with some groups in New York and some groups in Philadelphia in particular, or Pennsylvania, I'm not sure if it's Philadelphia, who were essentially shipping these just light bulbs with a solar panel and battery. And so now all these houses up there, like I think they've already distributed something like 50,000 of those lights that they received. And what a powerful statement to make that in the midst of all this, they could be one of the organizations really helping people with that simple idea. So, and again, I'll post something on that at some future time. But I would say that's really important for the future. Let's see. I got a lot of questions that I'm going to try to answer now. Try my best, at least. People had a lot of questions around getting around safety, business, tourism, who's there, who's left. So I'll try to answer as much as that, or at least my impression of what's going on, because it's not like I talk to everybody on the island or know exactly. I tried to stay out of politics too. I really tried not to meet with political figures that are everywhere right now, and wanted to just kind of talk to people and what they were really feeling. So it's hot, it's humid, like always. And when I say hot and humid, if you haven't been to Puerto Rico, it can be unbearable. So if you have no electricity right now, you have no air conditioning. For your average person like me, sure, I can sustain that and I can deal. But if you don't even have a fan, it's really crazy heat that we're talking about. And I worry about old people. I worry about people who can overheat. And if you watch the video on my cousin, who's a quadriplegic, she overheated and had a very serious medical crisis during the hurricane, or in the subsequent days of that, had to have the fire department help her. I mean, it's a serious thing. So I already talked about electricity, communication, internet reliability. I didn't really talk about that, but it's awful. It took me about 2 hours to post one video down there. That's why I barely was able to put any. That was one reason why I was barely able to kind of do stuff while I was out there. Hey folks, Kathy, Nancy, Jasmine, thanks for joining. So there was a lot of stuff like that going on. It was hard to get that out, but I will say it's improving. When I was down there, it was the power had just come on at my aunt's house in Condado, which is city center, and it was up for a day. It went out for a day. It came back, I think it was a day later, and it was about at 40% of the island, supposedly. It's kind of hard to believe, though, because when you drive around, I mean, maybe it's 40% of the population, more than 40% of the island. That, I don't know how they're playing with those numbers. But when you go to more remote areas, I mean, they just can't physically get to all of it. There are wires. They're not live yet, but they're draped on people's houses. They're draped on the ground. I mean, you can't just turn that on. It's going to take a lot of time to put up new posts and get them up and lined up so that they're not live wires that somebody can just walk into. So it's also just a real challenge. It's just a real challenge because of how bad it is, and how, I mean, the majority of the light posts and electric posts are down. The majority of them, by far. I mean, it's not like, oh, here and there. It's like all over the island, everywhere I went, and I almost did the entire circle on the outside. So, and I can imagine in the mountains it's worse, because when I did go in the mountains, it was really bad. The majority are down. And I mean, like, broken, bent, out of the ground, whatever. So safety, again, I didn't think it was that crazy. Business and economy, if I were to pick on something that I'm super concerned about, is business, economy, tourism, getting that back and going. Somebody had specifically asked me why San Juan wasn't like first priority to get things up and running. And I don't know where that source or where that person got that impression. I would say San Juan or the metropolitan area is the priority as far as I could see. It's where the most people live. You know, my opinion, it does make sense to kind of try to do that because most people live there. Tourism and business needs to start operating again. So just from I mean, in my mind, logistically, that makes sense to kind of prioritize that. But but that doesn't mean that I didn't see power and electric people all over the island, because I did. It's not like in a crazy amount, but I saw them here and there, right? And as for business and economy, and tourism, I am definitely concerned about that, because I would say 1 out of every 6 businesses was open, maybe. So you had, you know, when you go down any street there, and they're mostly made up of small businesses, mostly, hey, sorry, I'm going to break up. Why don't you just go to my mom's house with the kids? Sorry, Jason just got here. Mommy, Jason's going over with the kids. So when you look at that part of it, it's really scary. I think that it's going to take a long time for all of that to be up and running. I would love to see, and I'm this, you know, an idea I have right now is how could I help bring tourism back to the island? And I think these groups that come out and try to help rebuild is one really great way to do that. Those people who I have brought there before, I think, are really anxious to try to find a way to help. So I would love to try to figure out something like that. But I am concerned because even just those small businesses, you see restaurants open all over. You do see restaurants open, or little, you know, kiosks on the side or things like that. But they're not at all at the scale that they were. So that means a lot of people have been out of work since not only since Maria, but in some cases since Irma. So that would be a couple months in there and then some. And so I don't know how people are surviving. I don't know how, if they're not making a paycheck, if they're not, most restaurants are down, most just small businesses are down. If they don't have a generator or a way to clean up, or were struggling beforehand, and we know the economy was sort of struggling beforehand, I'm really worried. I'm really worried that that's going to take a while to come back. A lot of those people right now have just dropped everything, and they're just helping each other out. They're just trying to, bring back schools. Schools aren't all open. So like I went to a town very south, kind of at the entry point of the hurricane, and not one school is open in that town. And that's not unique to that town. So how are people going to get back to work? How are kids going to, are they going to have to take summer school to be able to make up for the time? They're going to consolidate schools is the plan right now. It's really, you can see how something like this could be detrimental to the economy for the long haul. So who is there? Right now in San Juan, I stayed in Condado, which is where most of the hotels are, Condado Isla Verde. And there are, everybody who lives there is there, but also it's full of Americans right now, or other people coming in to get government contracts, or there are people who are working on various parts and pieces, military, FEMA, police force, volunteer forces, all of that. I think they're welcome. I didn't get the sense that people were annoyed. If anything, they were like super happy they're there, because they already are eating and drinking and, and partying in a lot of cases, including Puerto Ricans. I mean, San Juan is a bubble right now. So even the locals are out partying. And I mean, honestly, how long can people be down? I don't blame them. They're going out, they're having fun, they dress to the nines. It's good to see that spirit and resiliency. So I didn't have a problem with seeing people out and doing that. I say more power to you. And I mean, you're working your butts off during the day trying to get things back in order. So it was good to see people out, and high spirits too, because it's pretty awful when you look around. So who are leaving? You can tell that people are leaving in droves, because they are, when you go to the airport, it is packed in a way like I've never seen before. Most people are obviously waiting at the gates trying to get off. The plane I came in on, though, was full, and I don't know if that's a shift, because I had heard that they were coming in empty. The day I got there, it was a full plane, and I think it was full of mostly Puerto Ricans who were coming in, and I think they were checking on family or checking on their homes or something like that. They had left early. Maybe they're going there to pick somebody else up and bring them back with them. But there were also a lot of contractors coming in, doing different things, all contractors and military and stuff like that. But the way that you can tell that people are leaving, one, if you ask anybody, a lot of them are leaving, but you'll see entire families getting on a plane. You'll see all the way from grandma and grandpa down to the grandkids getting on planes together and going somewhere to live with a cousin or a brother or sister or somebody like aunt and uncle somewhere in the States. You also see just a ton of luggage, a ton of packages, people leaving like that, and pets. You see people taking their pets. So I've got to assume that they are leaving for good, or planning to leave for a while. I met quite a few people who said that they had sent their family away early, or were sending their family away, and then maybe they were going back because they had a job or something like that, but they just didn't feel comfortable having their kids and wives and whatever back in Puerto Rico waiting, especially because, again, school is out for the most part, unless you go to a private school, and I'm not sure how many of the private schools are open. I didn't really get into that. I think a lot of them are open, but if you go to any of the public schools, I mean, you're struggling right now, and some of them are open, but they're open like half days. They're open like, I think they open at like 9 maybe to 12:30 was often the time that I saw. I think as weeks go on, they're trying to add more time to it. And I don't know if this is a political move just to say that they were open, or give parents some time to have time back, but it's hard. And so the people that I know who had kids and were working, they were struggling because they needed to get back to work, and how do they juggle like finding care for those kids during that time? So again, it all feeds into that economical problem. I'm really worried about that. I'm convinced this is going to be the third like mass immigration from Puerto Rico. There were a couple other ones, one to New York a long time ago and one to Hawaii. This is the next one. Reading my notes really quick. Medical world. There were a lot of questions about the medical world. And, you know, I dug in a couple ways that I could. I definitely had more intention of seeing more of that, but I did meet with a couple groups, 2 or 3 groups about that. You know, the day I arrived, the comfort ship was there, and I saw that they were seeing people. They had a big tent outside. They had a lot of people who were, it was like a triage idea in the front of it. And I guess there are medical tents set up all around the island by military or Red Cross or things like that. And they will triage you to wherever you need to go. If you need an immediate surgery, they'll put you on the ship right away, or they'll send you to Centro Médico or any of the good hospitals that they can get you to. If you walked in there today, they would have seen you. I have a personal situation with a family member who I was advocating to try to get on there. I don't think he got there in time because the day I left, the comfort ship left. So that's really unfortunate. Most hospitals and medical facilities are running on generators. They may have a lot of them. I think FEMA helped provide new generators, better generators than a lot of them had. Some of them, I know that they're I think it was, what's his name, brought the, from Tesla. He brought some solar powered things to either like a children's hospital or Centro Médico or something like that. But they're all running on generators. I have a cousin who works as a hospital administrator in Humacao, and she said, I've seen FEMA every day. FEMA comes and gives me fuel. Somebody from, you know, she didn't say who, but she said somebody is checking in on us daily, asking if we need things, asking if we need supplies, and we're getting them. So, you know, and I don't understand exactly how the structure of all that works. I will tell you this, though, on the other side of that, you ask any person on the island where FEMA is, and they're like, I have no idea. And the truth is, I didn't see him. I saw him one time at that town center. Across the street from that Casa Pueblo was FEMA in a school, and they were taking, their role there was to take information on anyone whose house was destroyed or something like that. But I can tell you I didn't see it everywhere, and I can understand the frustration, but I also don't know exactly what role they play. I don't know if they dole that all out to other organizations. It's a little unclear to me how that all works, but there definitely seems to be, if I were to say something that has become very clear to me about a disaster like this is, you know, so FEMA's at the top providing some sort of an organizational structure, and then there are the big groups that we all know, like the Red Cross and UNICEF and any of those big organizations or foundations that are out there that are trying to provide some sort of support. And I think they fill in some sort of category with FEMA. I think they, you know, whether it's shelter, water, food, or rebuilding, or whatever it is they do, and then other people fill in the gaps. They like, maybe they have room for government contracts that you can get to rebuild or something like that. And I think any company can apply for those kind of things. But then there's like what happens at the very lowest level, which is kind of the most critical level that everybody's worried about, is getting stuff to somebody, door to door. Who is going door to door? And what I learned is that it is all the grassroots organizations. It's a lot about people just kind of on the ground who are saying, oh my God, I can't stand this. I may not even be part of a foundation, but I'm just gonna figure this out. The problem with that is because that level of degree of organization hasn't been, I don't know why it wasn't thought out, or those logistics weren't already determined. But, and some people blame the local government, some people blame FEMA, some people blame all of it. it's a complicated thing. It's not obvious how to fix that in my mind, but I will say that there are a lot of small places that are doing that. And some of them are just normal people who just decided to do stuff. And some of them are the established small independent foundations that are doing that work. And it's the challenge is, you know, over here, the very thing that everybody's been asking me, who are they? How do you get to them? Frankly, from over here, I know there are some groups who have been doing a lot of that over the phone. I know there's a huge network of Puerto Rican diaspora who are out here trying to figure that out and trying to get those resources organized. And I'm seeing that happening, especially on Facebook. And I know some people who are part of that group. But like day one, it wasn't there. We're 2 months in, and it's super challenging to get that figured out. And I don't know if this is how it works in every disaster, because I've never paid so much close attention. I totally admit it. But for the future, this is critical, because those are the guys. It's not Red Cross, it's not FEMA, it's not the military who are going door to door and figuring out if that old lady is still on her bed and can't move and needs water and food and medicine. Or need even tarps. Tarps were not distributed everywhere. There are tons of people still living in roofless areas. So how do we fix that for the next disaster is definitely something that I think we should all be asking, and we have a responsibility to ask that, because I think it could be planned out better. I don't think it might not be perfect, but to get to that level of somebody knocking on people's doors and delivering things, especially or checking on people behind landslides, it has to happen. If not, there are people dying, right? How do we get people who are in serious medical conditions discovered and take them off the island or get them somewhere else safe? It's a real question that we should be asking, and it wasn't handled right. That I can tell you hands down was not handled right. And a lot of those organizations, by the way, that are doing that work are, how did they get the resources that they need? A lot of them didn't get it through FEMA, didn't get it. Some of them might have a contact and they were able to somehow negotiate something with them and prove that they were valid people trying to really distribute stuff. And the way I saw people doing that was they would go to FEMA through a contact or a military person they knew or something like that and say, just give me two cases of water and I'll show you that I'm going to do the right thing with it. And then they would literally take it somewhere, take a picture, go back to FEMA and be like, see, I'm actually doing the work. Can you give me more? Okay, I'll give you a case or a big pallet of them. And then they would do the same thing. They would take it out and do the same thing. And then they would go back to FEMA. Hey, see, look at all the pictures. Look at the video. I'm taking it over there, because they don't have an arrangement with them already. And so that's kind of one way that they were doing it. But the main way that these organizations are doing it, or these local people are doing it, is they're getting shipments through the mail. Through the best way to get people things today, I would say, is UPS, maybe FedEx, but UPS seems to be the most reliable one. Amazon seems like a reliable way to get things to people. The Postal Service, U.S. Postal Service, is hit or miss. I've heard stories of things being taken out of there. I think that it's a hit or miss thing, but for the most part, it's getting there. But you know what? Looting, as somebody I interviewed, Oscarito, he's a celebrity, and he made a good point. He's like, you know what? Even if you affect one family, and yes, there will be looting and thieves and things like that, and they'll take it, but it's not on a mass scale right now. He's like, it might not be ideal that they're breaking into packages and stuff like that on occasion, but it's not just breaking into packages. Like when we ship things, like say you ship water to Puerto Rico, one of the things that I heard about that was happening is, you know, we're not packaging it the way that Amazon would send it. So it might have gotten wet, it gets moldy, it may break, there are different things. So honestly, some of the reliable places that package things well, like Amazon, is a good way to do it. But again, UPS seems like a really good way to do it. FedEx seems like a good way to do it. And U.S. Postal Service, if you need to, it might miss some things, and we're not sure. I also heard that maybe it's that it ripped open and they didn't know what was in that box, and, you know, just in the packaging, because it was your own packaging. So I've heard things like that too. Um, did I finish on the medical world? I'm not sure that I did. No, I definitely didn't. Hold on, I'll go back to that for a second. Death counts. People ask me about that. Hola, Isi. Ix is my cousin over there that I spoke to. So death counts. I heard, when I asked that question about whether or not there were unaccounted deaths, I heard mixed reviews on that too. I heard some people say, no, there's no way that they would have killed, I'm sorry, not killed, that they would have cremated people without knowing exactly what they died of. So I don't know if that happened or not. But I also heard that it was kind of known that that did happen. I think it was 911 people. But I heard a really interesting example of, it's not just, there are going to be tons of deaths that won't be attributed to the hurricane, but we all know it is from the current hurricane. So like a really good example that was given to me was that 200 people, like within the first month or month and a half, that were at a hospice, in a hospice center, out of 600 died already. So 200 out of 600 died. And that is just a super fast pace of death. It's not what we would expect in a normal time. So, it's just, there's a lot of complexity to medical care right now. Mainly oxygen seems to be a big problem, and everything around diabetes. So there seems to be a lot of challenges right now with care around diabetes and everything that kind of trails with that. So kidney stuff, dialysis, medication. People don't have the money to pay for all their diabetic care things. So they'd rather eat or get gas for the generator or whatever it is than use the money for their medications. And in a circumstance like this, it's really tough. They're still not getting all the money they need to be able to live, especially in more impoverished areas. So in general, I mean, the deaths have been sped up as a consequence of the hurricane. It's a direct consequence of that. A group of people that we should all be worried about right now are the elderly. In general, I would say the elderly and infirm are the ones that are most challenged right now. So, if you did want to do a donation drive, a physical donation drive, I would say there would be two main things to be thinking about. The elderly, everything around that, diapers, to medications, to rash stuff, hydrocortisone, things around mosquitoes, those kind of things are really important for them, kind of caring for the elderly. Again, everything around diabetes, oxygen, generators to run their machines and things that they need for comfort, air conditioning or fans, just a fan. Those are probably the main things, light, something like that for the elderly. And I think they are by far the ones that are in the most need. And then the other group that I would start thinking about, because we're bumping up against the holidays, is definitely children, right? Like getting, I think we need to start thinking about Christmas time there. And what I will say about Christmas time there is I really wish that I could make it back for Christmas, because this year, I think, is going to be like a Christmas in the past. I mean, everybody said we've been set back 50 years, but in some ways, a really beautiful thing that I predict is going to happen in Puerto Rico is parrandas are going to be off the hook. It's going to be so fun to have parties in Puerto Rico this year, because you just can't keep people down, and because there's nothing else to do, and the lights won't be everywhere, and it will be sad. Giving kids presents and having Santa Claus visit and deliver presents to kids and music and food. You can't kill that spirit there, and I already have seen it. I've already seen the people who are coming together, and when people are distributing food, one of the most fun times I had was actually going with somebody that I went to high school with, and he was part of a group of bowlers who are doing barbecue every weekend, and in that they bring supplies to these really devastated areas. but they're just doing it with a party. They're singing Christmas songs already. They're bringing all the musical instruments that we have down there, and that I really think actually Christmas will be very different this year, and I think it will be positive. So I hope that I hope it'll be a different people when you need something more and coming together. I think it'll be really interesting. So something, yeah. Who else has joined? Thanks everybody for joining. Sorry, I'm reading some notes here. Thanks everybody. So, you know, I want to tell you, I'm gonna end this really with a couple of things. There was somebody, I know that some people, there's this whole Puerto Rico se levanta, which means Puerto Rico rises. And it's a great campaign because it's a marketing campaign. And so it's wonderful that people have gotten behind it, but there's a counter sentiment to that, and I totally understand it. And it's because it kind of feels like negative, because if Puerto Rico is rising, it means Puerto Rico's down, or has been knocked down. And so there was this old lady who said something really, really profound to me, I thought, at the time. And she said, Puerto Rico no se levanta, Puerto Rico está de pies. And so, or de pie. And it means Puerto Rico is not down, or it doesn't need to rise. Puerto Rico is already standing still. We got hit by the hurricane, but we're not down. And I thought that that was like really interesting and nice. And I have, since then, I've seen a couple other people post that. And I think it's true. I don't think that the spirit, the Puerto Rican spirit, is still super alive and strong. And I'll give you, what does that mean? What does that mean when you're not from there? I'll give you a really good example. In Puerto Rico, we love the jibaros. The jibaros are the hillbillies of Puerto Rico, and it's not like when you think of, I think there's a negative connotation sometimes to the hillbillies here in the States when you think about that. But over there, we really love them. They're the ones that really represent the roots of Puerto Rico, and they are typically poor mountain folk who live simple lives. They farmers, things like that. But we call anybody a jibaro, but when you really think about the true jibaro, like pictures of Puerto Ricans in straw hats and stuff and dancing la bomba or things like that, they are, they're beautiful people. And I'll give you a really specific story that I personally saw. You know, when I was up in that mountain where I watched, I met a guy whose house was destroyed by a avalanche of a mountain. A mountain went through his house, essentially. It was a landslide, I guess is the right way to call it. And it went through his house. It was probably the most awful thing I've ever seen. It was a cement house. It's not like it even was a wood house or something like that. It just literally went through it. The guy has nothing left. And it was just a small house anyway, like a one-room home. And, you know, in the back of his house, he has like 4 pigs and 5 chickens, and he lives on a farm. It was like a farm for different things, and his son lives just down the road. He's been staying with his son. But while I was there, the Army Reserve was plowing a road for him, and they had been there for 2 weeks plowing that road every day. And they were there for the last day, the day that I was up in the mountain. And this is the jibaro spirit. Like, this guy has nothing. We gave him water and checked on his, you know, the doctors checked him over and made sure he was okay. We gave him just a couple supplies because he really didn't ask for anything. But while we were there, they killed one of his only chickens and cooked it up into an asopao, which is like a stew. And they gave it to the 3 military reserves to thank them for all the work they had done. So, you know, at a time when you have nothing, you're willing to give everything to someone else. That's the Puerto Rican jibaro. And I see that everywhere there. I saw that in a lot of ways. And I heard tons of stories like that, but I can personally tell you that one. And at a time like where the holidays are coming up, I would say, you know, if you do have any funds that you can give to help Puerto Rico come back and be the beautiful island of enchantment that we all love, please do. And If you can donate things to any organizations that are actually taking things down there, think about, you know, Christmas toys and the elderly and some of the basic supplies that are still needed. Water is still needed. It's clean water. Filters. There are filters that can filter like 10,000 gallons that multiple homes can use in just a small bucket like that you would get at Home Depot. Things like that are huge. So I will be posting all the organizations that I think we're doing good work, and then some others that I didn't personally meet, but I've heard really good things about. So that's kind of my current summary. If I have more thoughts or you guys have more questions, I'll try my best to answer what I can. But you know, I appreciate you guys following me. I appreciate that you guys have been looking at my videos and spreading them. That's the key right now, is just to keep this in people's hearts and minds right now, and keep people aware of it, because there's not a lot of news on it anymore. So, but know that it's still in a crisis. This isn't post-crisis by any means. We are still in a crisis in Puerto Rico. So, please don't forget about it. Thank you so much for your time, and I will keep posting videos. All right, take care.